Good morning, everyone. I hope the drums woke everybody up.
The high and rush of definitely being on stage and speaking to a lot of people who believe in the cause and giving you feedback for it makes you feel like you can conquer the world, that you can continue to break barriers and break the rules and break the status quo of what women should be. And that's pretty empowering for me.
Meet Pranapda Phornprapha, Executive Vice President of automobile giant Siam Motors Group, which has been operating in Thailand for more than 67 years. Being the top management as a woman, especially in a male-dominant industry, can be very challenging. Pranapda said she would normally be the only woman in the boardroom, having to also work with Japanese people where their culture is heavily geared towards men. This was when she realized the problems that women are facing in the workforce.
I grew up in an environment where I only had male brothers and boys and cousins and everything. I was so comfortable being around boys that it didn't really bother me. But then when you look around, then you wonder, why are all the secretaries women and all the top managers are men? I would walk into like a meeting room, and as the CEO of an automobile company, the Japanese would turn to me and say, "Can you get me a glass of water?" Just automatically assuming that I was, the secretary or somebody subordinate. So these small things started building up, and it was more of a wake-up call that, oh, this is something that I need to fight harder for, speak louder for, ask more for. Otherwise, it just doesn't automatically happen.
According to Women in Business 2020 reports, Thailand has a greater percentage of women in top positions than both the Asia-Pacific region and the global average. 24% of CEOs or managing directors in Thailand are women, compared to 20% worldwide and only 13% in the Asia-Pacific. Despite the impressive statistics, Pranapda thinks they're just numbers.
If you really look around, at the end of the day, there are barely any women sitting on the board as leaders. My point is, we can still do more. I think everybody should continue to do more and to have a voice and to not be scared to demand. I think the number one problem that women in the work, or just in general, face is they don't speak up. We've not been taught and trained to really speak up. We've been taught to accept how things are. When I say speak up, I'm not saying, you gotta be demanding and whatever, but more just have a more open outlook as to what's fair and what's not fair. Then most likely, with enough voices, you will be heard.
Having spent much of her time in Canada and graduated from Brown University in the United States, her exposure to the Western way of thinking played a huge role in many parts of her life. Not being afraid to speak her mind was one of them, which somehow can be deemed aggressive for many Thais.
So say if you speak up and you're a guy, you're considered opinionated. But if you speak up as a woman, you're considered aggressive, like you just said, right? So those are the challenges that I think women face more. The backlashes are, I probably gained a reputation for being fierce. I probably gained a reputation for being aggressive, or whatever it is. But I think I was so comfortable in my own skin that it didn't really bother me. For me, I got things done as a result of it. And that was probably the most important thing. Women bear the brunt of child care and home care, like putting food on the table. It still falls primarily as the woman's responsibility, but countries in Europe and America, they share that. It's called unpaid work because you're not getting paid for taking care of your child. You're not really getting paid for making sure the household is in order. And on top of that, you're working. So if that responsibility can be more equal and men can have more sensitivity and compassion to understand that women are laid with these responsibilities, I do think it would be helpful.
After realizing gender inequality problems in the corporate world and in real life, this brought her to becoming the founder and CEO of Dragonfly, a regional platform for gender equality and women empowerment. One of the most notable projects was the first Women's Summit back in 2019.
I don't think I became more passionate about it. I think it was probably always in me, and I just didn't know it. I mean, honestly, it feels great because as I was going on the journey, I think a lot of people questioned what I was doing, including myself. Yeah. It was really nice to see the high school kids, university kids, just random people come up or recognize that this is an issue that they are affected with. It's a topic that we are finally discussing and hopefully getting some momentum going. Thai women are great, we're strong, but for me it means giving them the opportunity to have a voice, to speak up, and giving them the opportunities that they normally wouldn't have simply because they're girls or women. Keep up the fight. Don't accept things just because they are the way they are. Things can change and still should change, and I think women ourselves have the power. It's only really within us to have a voice to speak up and demand those changes. So I would say just continue the fight.